LA Kings star defenseman Drew Doughty suffers an ugly injury. What's the latest, and what are the Kings' options if he's out long term? That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we're on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, the countdown to the NHL season continues. The Kings season opener is October 10th in Buffalo against the Sabres, 14 days away. The Kings home opener is October 24th against the San Jose Sharks, 28 days away. And unfortunately, the Kings will likely be without star defenseman Drew Doughty for those games, and probably a lot longer. The Kings veteran and alternate captain suffered a fractured left ankle in the team's second preseason game of the year in Las Vegas Wednesday night. And while the team has not released any details on the injury or recovery time, someone I trust and have a radio relationship with, Dr. David Chow, former San Diego Chargers team doctor who now makes a living diagnosing sports injuries on social media. He's at Pro Football Doc. He posted on Thursday, quote, "Fracture confirmed, details pending, likely surgery, return time to be determined, but multiple months," end quote. Now, obviously, this is coming from someone who has not personally examined Drew Doughty or seen any of the information or the imaging, but he's usually right more times than not about these types of things. Now, if you didn't see the play, you can go see it if you want. It's on social media. It's on YouTube. About 8 minutes into the opening period of the second preseason game in Las Vegas, face-off in the Golden Knights end. The Kings' Alex Turcotte wins the draw back to Drew Doughty. He shoots the puck towards the net. It's blocked by former King Tanner Pearson, and the puck's headed the other way. Pearson and Doughty race for it. Pearson gets to it first along the boards. He taps it ahead, and then the two engage along the boards in a battle for positioning and to try and get to the puck. In the process of that, Drew Doughty kind of lost his balance, and he went feet first into the boards. His left foot or ankle, though, bent extremely awkwardly into the boards. After initially being on his knees after play was stopped, he rolled over onto his backside and grabbed his left ankle. He had to be helped off the ice. He did not put any pressure on his left leg as he went off the ice and immediately into the locker room. The Kings announced that Drew Doughty had suffered a lower body injury and would not return. Afterwards, head coach Jim Hiller had no update on Doughty initially, but he said he'd be reevaluated in LA on Thursday. But Hiller did have to say immediately after the game, quote, "Nobody feels good about that. You know, you see a guy like that. Everybody knows Drew's a warrior. He's not going to leave the ice unless he's hurting for sure. It's disappointing because you don't know, right? It's the unknown." And again, that was Kings head coach Jim Hiller right after the game against Vegas. If you saw the incident like I did, you saw Jim Hiller's reaction on the bench. It was pretty much a look of disbelief, a look of disappointment, and then he kind of took a breath and said, "Okay, let's go, guys," which is unfortunately the way you have to treat those kinds of things. Obviously, if you're a Drew Doughty fan like I am, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing Drew Doughty's Team Canada jersey today. Obviously, you wish all the best for Drew, not just the hockey player, but the person, for a speedy and full recovery. This sucks in every way, especially for him, a guy who's so competitive. To have this happen in a preseason game, it's very, very difficult for him, the team, and obviously fans as well. As for what this means for the Kings in the immediate future, I believe Drew Doughty is the most irreplaceable player on the Kings roster. Team leader, eats up multiple minutes, plays at a high level, plays in all situations, 5-on-5, shorthanded power play. So he is not a guy you just replace or try to replace easily. It's kind of cliched, but everybody is going to have to take a step up in their game to try and fill those skates. It's going to be a very, very difficult loss, if in fact he is out for a significant amount of time, which I believe he will be. Now, I think Drew Doughty will be placed on long-term injured reserve. I don't think that's a stretch, even with the lack of information we have right now. So what are the Kings' options once they do that? And by the way, being placed on long-term injured reserve, LTIR, means that he will miss at least 10 NHL games and 24 days of the NHL season. That seems almost certain. And frankly, it's very likely it's going to be a lot more than that. Now, putting him on long-term injured reserve will give the Kings some salary cap relief from his $11 million salary per season. If they wanted to go out and add a player at some point, that certainly could help. I don't see them doing anything initially. Plus, frankly, even if they do go get someone, it's not like there's a Drew Doughty available out there anywhere. And even if there were, it certainly wouldn't be now at this point of the season when everyone's getting started. If it was later in the year and you've got teams that are already really out of the playoff picture and looking to build for the future, you could see them maybe parting with somebody who's going to be maybe an upcoming UFA or something like that. But the season's just starting. Nobody's looking to make some trade. Of course, you could make someone an offer that they couldn't refuse, but I just don't see the Kings doing anything like that here. Initially, I think the Kings are going to see what they have and then make a decision at some point down the road. So what are the Kings going to do now in the interim? I think the answer is already on their roster. And I don't know if this is a hot take or not, and I'm not trying to be controversial. It's not my way. But I really believe the Kings should try to make a positive out of a negative. I think they should promote Brandt Clarke to be the number one defenseman on the right side along with Mikey Anderson. Now, obviously, this isn't what the Kings want to do, but stuff happens and you have to make adjustments and you have to change things. We know that the ultimate plan is to have Brandt Clarke eventually be that guy, right? That Drew Doughty type, that guy that can eat up minutes and play in all situations and be a dynamic player. Obviously, that's not the schedule now as he is just starting his NHL full-time career. But because of the situation they're in, and because I think he has the talent and more importantly, the mindset to take this on, I'd love to see it. I think, look, Brandt Clarke has been an alpha on every team he's been in at every level. He's been the guy. He's been the top defenseman doing everything Drew Doughty does at the NHL level. He's been doing it as at his levels as he's progressed up the food chain. He did it in the AHL last year with the Ontario Reign. Obviously, this is a huge step up. Obviously, he'd be taking on, the best of the best competition. But I really don't see a downside to this. Now, would there be growing pains? Of course. Are there going to be mistakes? And he's going to be learning on the job. Yes, it's a huge challenge for Brandt Clarke. But I think he could handle it. I think he has the talent to handle it. And I think he has that something that he would embrace this challenge and take it head on. I don't think he would be afraid. I think he has that swagger to him. And sure, there'll be some times he gets humbled, but I'm for kind of throwing him into the deep end and letting him swim and letting him figure it out and really accelerating his development. Now, do I think the Kings are going to do that? I don't. I don't think they're going to do that. As a matter of fact, Dennis Bernstein, who does work for the Fourth Period NHL Network and covers the Kings, asked Jim Hiller, I guess something to that effect, and he tweeted out that Jim Hiller said, I believe the quote was, "I'm not taking the reins off of Brandt Clarke," which seemed to indicate that the Kings have a plan for Brandt Clarke, and even in this difficult situation, they're not going to, I guess in their eyes, overreact to something and put him in a position where he's not ready for it. And I get that. I really do. I'm not saying I'm right and they're wrong. I'm just saying, to me, I think he could handle it. I think he's the best option. I mean, look, there's nobody that you're going to put into that position that's going to be able to fill Drew Doughty's shoes, no matter who it is. they're all going to be taking a step up. If it's a guy, even it's a veteran guy like Kyle Burrows, he's not a number one defenseman. He's not going to eat up all those minutes. It's going to be a shared collective thing. If you're talking about, who's going to play on that number one line with all those minutes that Drew Doughty plays, you're going to have to absorb that throughout the defensive roster. So it's not like we're asking Brant Clark to just go be Drew Doughty and do everything he does. Of course not. But I just think his development could be jump-started in this very difficult situation. And in the end, maybe that's ends up being a positive out of this whole situation. So, like I said, I don't think the Kings are going to do it. I would like to see it. I think it would be awesome. I think he could handle it, but we'll see. That's just my take on it. But again, it's going to be one of those things. It's next man up, but it's also replacing Drew Doughty. It's a huge challenge. It's going to be a huge challenge for the LA Kings. It's a team as a defensive core. It's going to be a challenge for head coach Jim Hiller. I know there's been some talk. Maybe the Kings use that 11-7 setup with the 11 forwards and the 7 defensemen with the loss of Drew Doughty. Putting an extra defenseman in there certainly could make a lot of sense now at this point. Again, all of the guys trying to absorb those minutes, so to speak. So maybe that's an option. Does the loss of Drew Doughty, is that so significant that it could cause the Kings not to make the playoffs this year? And I hate even talking about that because we're just getting the season going and there's so much optimism, and we're just dealing with this now in the present. So it's going to be, tough to handle in the now. And as we go along, it'll get easier, I suppose. And I know some of you are like, hey, man, we don't even know he's really going to be out long term. All right, they haven't said it yet, but I will be totally 100% stunned if he's not out multiple months. But we'll see. But again, hopefully adversity can bring the team together if, in fact, he's as injured as I believe he is. But it sucks. There's no way around it. This sucks. And if you don't believe me, ask Mikey Anderson, Drew Doughty's defensive partner, who said earlier today to LA Kings insider Zach Dooley after practice, quote, "It sucks. Anyone getting hurt on either team, you don't want to see it. But when it's someone on your own team, especially Dewey, who's a big part of the room, plays a lot of minutes, it sucks. Hopefully everything can come around quick, but it's a big loss for sure." No doubt about it. It's definitely one of those things no one can predict, but it's a huge factor in the success of teams in all sports, injuries. And the Kings are going to have to, it looks like, overcome a big injury to a very important player. Well, other than that, the Kings actually did a lot of good things in their win over the Golden Knights, despite the Drew Doughty injury. We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Those of us that live in the LA area are very lucky. We have the opportunity to do so many things as far as live events, sports for sure. I'll be at the Chargers-Chiefs game this Sunday, but it's not just about sports, theater events, concerts, so many options. And no matter what you like to enjoy, you need to do what I do, and that's use Gametime for all your ticket needs. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can get USC football tickets for $55. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. And hey, NFL fans, you can start the season off with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you have a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And of course, FanDuel is there for you to bet on Major League Baseball as we're getting ready for the playoffs, the postseason getting going in baseball, college football is in full swing, and of course, the NHL will be here soon as well. And you can even bet on NHL preseason games. Join FanDuel, browse the latest betting odds of your favorite sports and teams on the Sportsbook app, and get in on the action. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Well, we are turning the page on the Drew Doughty injury as much as we can. and focus on the Kings' second preseason game of the season. That was Wednesday night in Las Vegas. As for the lineup for the LA Kings in this one, talked about it, quite a change from the opening game. They had the opening preseason game, a lot more veteran lineup. We did have Philip Deneau along with Trevor Moore and Tanner Jeannot on the top line. Quentin Byfield with Kevin Fiala and Warren Fogle were the second line. Alex Turcotte, Alex Laferriere, and Andre Lee were the third line, and Glenn Gaudin centered the fourth line along with Tyler Madden and Atu Yemsen. On defense, we had Mikey Anderson and Drew Doughty to start, Vladislav Gavrikov and Jordan Spence, Jared Woolley and Kyle Burrows, and the goaltending tandem was Darcy Kemper getting the start and Carter George as the backup. Because this game was on the NHL Network only, I know a lot of you probably didn't have a chance to see it, so we're going to give some quick thoughts and recaps on what happened in the game. First period, Darcy Kemper in his first start in his second stint as an LA King saw a tough shot from Tomas Hertl on the first shot of the game, ended up making the save, and then really didn't have much action for the rest of the first period, but he got tested right away, and he stood up to the test, which was a nice sign. Jared Woolley, the very young defenseman, had a nice shot on goal with Alex Turcotte and Andre Lee in front of the net. That was a common theme, being in front of the net. Later on, Quentin Byfield won a battle in the corner and fed Warren Fogle for a good scoring chance. Turcotte and Lee also had another chance later as Alex Turcotte continues to play well this preseason. Tanner Jeannot would draw a tripping penalty in that opening period. The Kings' number one power play unit in this game had Deneau, Fiala, Gaudin, Byfield, and Spence. They had Byfield set up on the wing, and there was a lot of good puck movement from that first power play unit. The second power play unit, same thing. You had Turcotte, Laferriere, Yemsen, Fiala, and Burrows, and Fiala would put a backhand shot on net. Save was made, but Turcotte was in front, made a nice pass to Alex Laferriere, who put it home, and the Kings grabbed a 1-0 lead. Just 20 seconds later in that opening period, Warren Fogle would skate into the zone, left a drop pass for Tanner Jeannot, who scored on a wrist shot through the legs of a defenseman and then top shelf. If Tanner Jeannot meant to shoot that shot the way he did, I didn't know he had that in his toolbox. That was a great shot, using the defender as a screen and going top shelf. That's very difficult for a goalie to defend. If he can make shots like that consistently, he's going to score some goals. That was a great shot. So the Kings had a 2-0 lead. Vegas was outshot in that opening period by the Kings 16-3, and really only one good scoring chance for Vegas, which was the first shot of the game. Kings obviously getting a power play goal. Vegas did not have a power play opportunity in the first period. In the second period, Tanner Pearson would get behind Quentin Byfield in alone. Darcy Kemper comes up, though, with the nice save on a backhand attempt. Alex Turcotte would have a turnover, led to a Vegas rush. Noah Hannafin would score on a one-timer to cut the lead to 2-1. Quentin Byfield, though, later on comes back with speed into the zone, throws a puck into the crease. Warren Fogle was there crashing, couldn't put it in, but again, a really good sign to see the Kings being aggressive around the other team's net. Kevin Fiala had some great hands and a move around a defender, tried to get it to Byfield, but it went off a defenseman, but right to Warren Fogle, who put it home again in front of the net, and the Kings had a 3-2 lead. Byfield later would lose a draw, and there would be a set play for Vegas. They got a good shot on net, but Darcy Kemper made the save. Kemper later had a nice save, moving from his right to his left. Alex Turcotte would get a nice steal in the Vegas zone that led to a possession and an Andre Lee chance in front of the net, another in front of the net. And that's how we would be through two periods, with LA leading it 3-1. The Kings had outshot Vegas through two periods, 21-12. In the third period, not a lot going on. The Kings would replace Darcy Kemper with Carter George for the third period. There were lots of penalties being taken back and forth. Neither team really had much of a power play advantage. One team would get a power play, and then a few seconds later, there would be a penalty on the other team. Then they'd skate 4-on-4 a while, and then they did that again a few more times. So there wasn't a great flow in that third period. There was one really bad incident for the Kings in the third period. Really the only bad moment for the Kings, other than, of course, Drew Doughty getting hurt. But Alex Laferriere made a terrible pass in his own zone right through the middle of the ice. I don't know what he was thinking. It was easily intercepted and went right into the back of the net. Carter George did not have a chance on that one, and that made it 3-2. But Vegas would get no closer, and the Kings would skate off with their first victory of the preseason. And again, 3-2 was the final. As far as the final team numbers in this one, shots on goal favored the Kings 30-24. Power play, Kings were 1 for 4 and Vegas was 0 for 3, but there were a lot of power play chances in that third period that were kind of disjointed. Face-offs favored the Golden Knights 30-27. Block shots, Vegas 18 to the Kings 9. And hits, LA out hitting Vegas 25-23. As far as the 3 stars in this game, always a good sign when there are multiple guys to pick from, but I wanted to go with a couple of the new guys. Warren Foegele is going to be my number 1 star for this game. He had a goal, an assist, and 3 shots on goal. And he was constantly around the net, which is what we heard, that he's a good player as far as doing that kind of thing. Blue collar, go to the net, being a pest in front of the crease. He definitely was that, but he had some nice skill plays as well. Goalie Darcy Kemper looked solid, stopped 11 of 12 shots. Again, not spectacular, but very solid, very steady. We'll take that all season long. And then my third star, I'm going to go with Quinton Byfield, playing at the center position with 2 assists in the win over the Golden Knights. Now, the Kings did have more NHL players on the roster for this game than Vegas did, particularly in the forward positions, but not as lopsided as it was for the Utah Hockey Club when they took on the LA Kings. But I would certainly give the Kings the talent advantage in this game, and it showed in this one. I thought they were the better team. I thought the newcomers looked solid. Tanner Jeannot, he had a team-high 5 hits. Again, a new guy brought in to bring a physical edge. He did that, had a goal as well. We talked about Warren Foegele. We talked about Darcy Kemper. So I thought the new guys looked really good in this first chance for us to get to see them. I thought the Kings had a lot of quality zone time, which they really didn't have in their first preseason game against Utah. I thought the power play looked pretty good. A lot of good puck movement there. Quinton Byfield at center, he was certainly active at times. He was, he had that one defensive lapse that I mentioned, but other than that, I thought he played pretty well. 57% in the faceoff circle. I did like that third line a lot. Actually, it was the second line in this game, but probably the third line for the Kings during the regular season of Quinton Byfield, Kevin Fiala, and Warren Foegele. I didn't see, pardon me, I think we get like an Amber Alert there. We talked about how the Kings have been so physical in training camp, and I won't say that this game was overly physical. Maybe the injury to Drew Doughty, though, does have something to do with that. Guys see somebody get seriously injured, and they're thinking the last thing I want to do is get hurt in a preseason game. So maybe that took the physical edge off a little bit, but Tanner Jeannot did throw the body around. I talked about on Wednesday's show, wanted to see some chemistry between Jordan Spence and Vladislav Gavrikov, but once the injury happened to Drew Doughty, it put the defensive pairings in a spin cycle, and so we never really got a chance to see that, although Spence did play 27 minutes and 7 seconds in this game. Other than the Drew Doughty injury, which is hard to say other than, I thought it was a solid game for the LA Kings. They only had the one really, really bad play from Alex Laferriere. Other than that, a lot of guys chipping in, the new guys playing well. Vegas didn't have a lot of high-quality scoring chances. The one mistake really led to the goal that kind of made it a game. But all in all, and I know it's hard to look past the Drew Doughty injury, but all in all, I thought a very positive game for the rest of the team in that victory over the Vegas Golden Knights. The LA Kings did have some roster moves that they made. We'll update you on that and more here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, no matter how the last game went, anytime you take the field, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Indeed partners you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match Assessments and virtual interviews. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. The Kings did make some news today, as every day we get closer to teams finalizing their rosters for the upcoming season. And the Kings did assign 4 players to their respective junior teams. This year's first-round draft pick, Liam Greentree, is headed back to Windsor in the Ontario Hockey League. Some good experience for Liam here with the LA Kings in the rookie faceoff and in the preseason game against Utah. Also, this year's second-round pick, goalie Carter George, headed back to Owen Sound in the OHL. I thought he did very, very well in the rookie faceoff and also in his 2 appearances in the 2 preseason games in relief of the number 1 goalies against Utah, Eric Portillo, against Vegas, Darcy Kemper. I thought he did very, very well. He stopped 7 of 8 shots in the game against Las Vegas on Wednesday. So Carter George, I thought, did a really good job in his brief time with the LA Kings, made a good impression on a lot of people. Defenseman Jared Woolley, 6th-round pick in this year's draft, is headed back to his junior team, London, in the OHL. He played in that game on Wednesday night against Vegas, and I thought he looked pretty good. If you didn't know that he was such a young player, he didn't stand out negatively. He's got the size of an NHL player, and he didn't really make any mistakes. No, they were noticeable. He had a couple of real nice zone entries. I thought he played very well, so that was an encouraging sign. And defenseman Matthew Mania, 5th-round pick in 2023, is headed back to Flint in the OHL. So all those guys got some good time with the LA Kings, rookie faceoff, training camp, and for Greentree and Carter and Woolley, some actual quote-unquote NHL preseason action. I'm sure that they'll take that experience with them and apply it to their seasons this year, and hopefully everybody will have a really great season. We're going to try and definitely keep track of those guys and all the Kings prospects as well as the college players, and we'll check in on those players periodically throughout the season to let you know how they are doing. Coming up for the LA Kings, they have a pair of preseason games against the Anaheim Ducks. Saturday, they are in Ontario. Monday, they're in Anaheim. Also on Monday, the Ontario Reign are opening up their training camp, so the Kings and Reign rosters should be pretty much set after the weekend. And then the Kings will be headed off to Quebec for the final week of training camp. They'll play a pair of preseason games in Quebec as well, and then it'll be time to get the regular season going. Obviously, coming up on tomorrow's show, which is a fan feedback show, we will have hopefully an update on Drew Doughty. I'm fingers crossed that I'm wrong and a lot of people are wrong and he's not going to be out long term. I would love to be so wrong. I'm expecting the worst and hoping for the best, but any news that we have, obviously we'll pass that along tomorrow. And as I said, it is a Friday fan feedback show coming up on Friday. Your thoughts on the Drew Doughty injury, your thoughts on the first 2 preseason games for the LA Kings, or anything else on your mind involving the Los Angeles Kings. It is your show to comment on anything and everything involving the LA Kings. You can send an email to Locked On LA Kings. No, it's Locked On Eddie. How can I not know this after all these years? LockedOnEddie@gmail.com is the email address. LockedOnEddie, EDDIE @gmail.com. If you want to send an email for the fan feedback show, and you can always leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section. We'd love you to stay interact with the show through X, Twitter, Instagram, giving updates on the Drew Doughty stuff as well. When that comes across, we're at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you on Friday. And as always, go Kings, go.